Hey you guys, it's Danielle K. White. Welcome to the Danielle K. White Show. On this podcast, what you can expect is anything from fashion, fitness, hair, and yes, even family. I'm the creator of Natural Beta Real Hair Extensions and Isla Hand-Tied Hair. But what I'm really passionate about is sharing other people's stories, how they went from the pit to the peak, how entrepreneurs build the success that you see online today. So definitely tune into this podcast for a good story and a little bit of fashion and a little bit of hair and beauty mixed in. Hello, you guys, and welcome to the Danielle K. White Show. I'm so excited because I have a guest in my living room. I have Jeff Fenster. I just recently met you, but I've been kind of like looking into what you do, and I was like, I have to have you on the podcast because he's the creator of Everbowl, which is a massive franchise, and you guys, it's superfood bowls,
yep.
Right?
Acai bowls and pitaya bowls and all the flavorful bowls.
All the flavorful bowls. But you started in law and then decided to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I actually never wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Okay, so that's where we need to start like right now. Because it's interesting because I feel like entrepreneurship just like lands on people's laps and then they're like, wait, why did I think this was a good idea? Because you end up working way more than you would any other business in a sense.
Oh, for sure. And it's not at all. Had I known with everything, I always get asked, if I knew what I know now, would I have done it? And the truth is most of the time, no.
Yeah.
If you told me what it would take to scale Everbowl to where we are today, when I started as
no way.
I'd be like, yeah, I could do something else.
Yeah. So you started in law.
Yeah, to be a sports agent.
Oh, okay. Did you practice law at all?
Briefly, right out of law school, sports agent, and had a daughter in law school with my wife. And back then, 2006, 2007, we didn't have Zoom. We didn't have the ability to work remote. So when you had a meeting with potentially a deal for one of your clients, you had to fly and be there. You had to be in person everywhere. And we didn't have the ability like we do today to stay connected pre-smartphones. Right. We had little razor flips, and back then also was broke. And so you had to pay by the minute unless it was nights and weekends and the fun that was cell phones. And so really had to make it a choice. Did I want to be the absentee father and never see my kids and never be at home to represent grown-up egomaniacs that made a bunch of money? And I got to be their glorified call it what you want. I did it because I loved sports and I couldn't be a professional athlete. So that was my thought of how I could stay connected. And so I decided to quit that. And so law degree, six figures.
Traveling the time?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And I had a little, fiance and a baby at home and quit. Had six figures in law school loans and no idea what I was going to do when I was going to be a grown up.
It's not worth the lifestyle. I didn't want this at all. So then you're shoved into entrepreneurship?
No. Reached out to a friend of mine who got me a job at ADP, the payroll company, because sales was kind of my bag. I'm pretty good at, and I'd always done sales in high school and college and, mentoring and having mentors and interning. I got a lot of experience around sales. And so I got a job selling payroll in San Diego for a global company called ADP, which is a massive payroll company. And I was very successful. My first 6 months, I was top sales rep out of 2,000 in the country, made President's Club, trip to Monaco and Vegas and six figures in earnings and bought a house in Mira Mesa in San Diego, moved my fiance and daughter in. And this was the life. I mean, I was working 3.5 days a week, making a very good living, paying off all my debts. And I was going to work at ADP forever. Like, hey, this is it. Yeah. And I had negotiated I got $38,000 salary plus commission. And so I negotiated a $54,000 salary if I hit a certain milestone, which I did in January of 2007, I believe, if my year's right, or 8, whatever the year was. And went to my boss and said, okay, when do I get the raise? And they said at the end of the fiscal year, which wasn't until June 30th, you'd get it in July. And I said, well, I have a kid and family and I put every dollar into a down payment on a home, even at 3.5%. And I need my money. And they said, you have to wait. And I just remember in that moment, just feeling like my entire life is now on someone else's schedule. I have zero control over my outcome. What I liked about sales was I eat what I kill or I starve if I'm lazy. Right. Like it's kind of like being an athlete. Like you can dictate your results. Right. And that's what was appealed to me. So I got very upset. I threatened to quit if they didn't give it to me. My boss said, there's nothing we can do. Like she went upstream. Ashley went to her manager and long story short, ADP said, sorry, you want to threaten to quit? There's the door if you want to leave. And so I went home and kind of sat down with my fiance, Brittany, and I said, I don't want to be here. And she said, then quit. And I'm like, what are we going to do? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, I could start a payroll company and know how to sell payroll. Not knowing anything about running a business. I had never heard the word entrepreneur. That was never in my cards or my life. And so I went in, quit, sold my house and moved my daughter and fiance into my parents' house and started my first company at 20. I was 25 or just turned 25 at the time, out of my mom's kitchen called iChecks.
Wow.
And that was my introduction to entrepreneurship and what was going to be required. And
what was iChecks then? It was
a payroll company. Literally, my whole thesis was I'm going to go back to every client I just sold for ADP and I'm going to sell them on my own service and F ADP. Like that was really the whole thing. I don't know about cursing on your show, so I'll be careful on my tongue, but exactly. Yeah. Not realizing that you have to actually run a business and all the other parts that come with after someone says yes.
Because isn't it interesting how entrepreneurs look at it as like, oh, this is my ticket. This is my freedom. This is I get to call the shots. Well, you realize you're like, wow, I went from working 3.5 days a week to working 8 days a week and then not 8 days in a week.
That's great. And moving back in with my parents and having that ego hit, right? Yeah. Because a lot of times I get asked, especially today at this stage in my life, where I have a mortgage and I have kids. And, my dad said, he was very upset with me. He said, you don't have the privilege of quitting. Like he was already mad when I didn't use the law degree that I just got. Yeah. And then now I'm going to quit a 6-figure job and move back in with him. And I have a daughter, and I'll never forget it because he sat me down and he said, father-son talk. And he said, Jeff, you're being selfish. You don't have the privilege to chase crazy dreams. You have a family to support. Wow. You need to be a man and you need to go work that job and support your family. Wow. And I said, Dad, I agree with you on the premise, but I look at it from the other side. I have a kid now, and that kid is going to look at what I do. And kids emulate parents. They don't listen to parents. Right. And any parent out there who says, well, my kids listen. No, they don't. They watch what you do, which is why if you smoke, your kid's more likely to smoke. Right. If you're healthy, your kid's more likely to be healthy. And I realized that my kid was going to look up to Dad and see he cashed in his goals and ambitions and dreams and settled. Wow. And I didn't ever want that to be the case. And I can always get another job. Right? Like jobs are available and I have a skill set in sales, so I can always go sell something for somebody and make money. So why not go after it? Why not pursue it? Right. And then it was, my friends made fun of me. Like, you living back with mommy and daddy, like, and same, I had to go through that. And so the excuses we put in front of us to not pursue our goals of kids, spouse, mortgage, house. Well, if you're not willing to trade in your current lifestyle for the goals and dreams you want, you're not going to get there. And so I did it. And not knowing what the hell I was doing, How hard is that though? Like, I feel like when, entrepreneurs or anybody decides to leave their current comfort box, their comfort zone, they're like, oh, I'm going to go do this. And then to hear your dad say like, what are you doing? This is selfish. This is irresponsible. It's like, how do you tune out that noise? And for me, it's when I've had this as an entrepreneur, it's almost like, it's like a knowing. So people can say that and it hurts and it's hard, especially with your father and friends. But ultimately, like, did you have kind of this like knowing in the sense of like, that stings a little bit, but like, I might be living here for now, but this is temporary. Like, how do you, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that they listen to family and friends and then they're like, you're right, tuck my tail. Like, I'm not going to build that. Like, how did you overcome that? Well, I've always lived with this principle that I respect certain people's opinions and I ask for them and I ask for advice, but I'll never put too much stock in anyone's opinion who doesn't live with the outcome. Right. So if you tell me to turn left at that street corner and you're in the car with me, I trust to turn left. Right. But if you're standing on the side of the road and say you should turn left, but everything in me says go right, I'm going to listen and take it because it's my father. I know he wants what's best for me. But like all of us, we're all limited to our own views in the world, right? I can give you my best advice on something, but it's based on my own experience and my own upbringing. And so, my dad was a doctor. My mom was a teacher. There was no business in our world. And it was go to school, go to college, become a doctor or a lawyer, because that's what was pressed on me. And then go have a successful long career and make good money. And it is the formula for middle class to upper middle class life. Like, you are guaranteed to have a quality life. Right. You'll have a nice home. You'll be in a nice community. You'll be able to support yourself. You won't hit the millions and you probably won't be broke. Safe. It's safe. It's the safe path. And I get where he was coming from, especially because I was sporadic and jumping all over the place and I'm not using the law degree. And now he was mad when I got the job and now I'm successful and now I'm going to quit that. And so it's like, when are you ever going to have stick-to-itiveness? When are you ever going to lean in and do what you have to do? And I get it as a dad why he saw that. But I had to tune it out because I have to live with my own life and outcome. And I was miserable. And what kind of a friend, what kind of a parent, what kind of a spouse, what kind of a son, what kind of guy can I be if I'm not excited and living in my purpose? And I knew nothing about, there was no, this was before smartphones. Like, I couldn't YouTube it. Like, that wasn't something we did. So I didn't know about entrepreneurship. My ignorance, my naivete, if you will, was was a blessing. Because like I said, had I known what was going to be required to do it, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Right. You're just like, this looks easy. I can do this. And it's interesting too, because if you're in sales and you have hustle, you're like, there's a little bit of that ego. I always say entrepreneurs have to have an ego though. Yes. You have to have an ego to actually start anything and think that you're going to have success.
That's right.
So you start your own business. You're literally in your parents' house. Yeah. When did it turn? When were you finally like, okay, I figured some shit out?
Yeah. 8 months later, we were very successful. I was able to sell a lot of clients. It was the beautiful timing with the Great Recession. So of course, I also started a company at the worst time.
Yeah.
And so there was a great opportunity for me to lean into the fact that businesses were struggling. People were down on their financial luck, if you will. And I was able to go in and be the cost leader. Like, take a chance on me because I'm going to be half price. So I literally went in and say, show me your current price with ADP or Paychecks, cut it in half. I'll sign a contract with you right now.
Oh, you found the problem.
Yes.
When everyone else was struggling and you're like, oh, this isn't a problem. This is, I'll offer you a solution.
Absolutely. And we had a better solution and they liked me and they knew that I was going to be there for them. And so we grew quickly. And then in about 8 months later, we got approached by a private equity group that invested some capital into us and helped us scale. And then we turned the company into a company called Canopy HR, which was a more HRIS digital platform. And think about it like the smartphone was just being born. And so this was like an app. And now as an organization, the whole human resource department is centralized instead of paper applications and paper folders and it's now digital.
Right.
And so there was a great opportunity for us and we capitalized it and ended up selling in 2011. So about 3.5 years after we started to a company out of Florida. And that was...
Were you planning on selling it?
I mean, I had no idea. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants.
You're like, I got an offer. This is great.
Well, yeah. And the private equity group wanted to sell and it was a nice number, especially as there were periods of time when I had to borrow money from my father-in-law to pay a bill and dancing the credit card roulette of what am I going to use to do this time? Because my mom and dad weren't there to financially support me anymore. He made it clear when I made my choices, but emotionally he was there and I had a home at his house. And so 1 year after I started the company, I was able to buy my next house that moved out of there and got the house that, out of the parents' home.
Did your dad change his too? Was he kind of like, good job? Like, was there a piece of him that was just like, I experienced something similar with my parents. They're like, stay here, I'd stay. And then I was like, no. And now my mom's like, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, thanks, Mom.
I mean, they're proud of me. My dad's instinct, even to this day, when I started a construction company and we just kind of launched it pretty big about just over a year ago. And even to this day with, tons of exits and success and money, he is a naysayer by design. He is the glass is always half empty. Oh, he will be that voice, but he also is very proud of, and they're excited. My mom always says, I don't have a clue what you ever do, but I know it's going to work. And she, she's my biggest cheerleader and champion.
I think it's like showing with results, right?
Exactly.
It's like, that's my model. It's like, you're like, you know what? I could talk about this, but people see it and they can't deny the results.
That's right.
So you sold that company. Yep. Then what happened?
Well, so in 2010, right before I sold it, I started a recruiting agency because I do something in sales where I don't do transactions.
Okay.
So if I sell you something or I'm on the selling end of a relationship with you, it's a forever thing. I'm a solution-based sales rep. So I'm not going to sell you a bottle of water if you're not thirsty. Because I don't want to sell you something one time.
Right.
I want to be a solution for life. So I would talk to my customers and during the recession, they kept complaining that they couldn't recruit talent. Because no one who had a job was leaving. They were scared of this whole massive unemployment and the pool of unemployed people was so big. How do you find somebody? And so I started a recruiting agency just to serve my payroll clients. And from there, we started to serve outside clients and it grew. And so I got to focus on that right when we sold. And then I sold that a year later. Wow. And so that was my second kind of fun exit and my first taste of vertical integration and really understanding that there are multiple kinds of entrepreneurs, right? And a lot like for your audience and your background, a lot of them are hairstylists who start a hair salon and they're entrepreneurs.
Right.
I'm not a hairstylist who starts a salon. I'm a serial entrepreneur where I start businesses and the industry doesn't matter.
Right.
So I started a few other companies. I helped a bunch of companies raise capital. So it's called J Capital. I had another company that didn't work out as well because I got a lesson in how businesses work also where I was part of the group to legalize equity-based crowdfunding, which everyone now knows crowdfunding, but back then it was illegal. And so I wanted to help legalize it. And we had a company called Equity Circle and we were going to build a platform and help legalize it. And we did the whole thing and we got it legalized. And my platform sucked because while I was helping to fight the fight on legalization, my competitors were building state-of-the-art platforms. So they kicked my ass in that and I got, I learned.
Was that one of your biggest, as an entrepreneur, was that one of your biggest turns?
Yes.
I feel like it's sometimes things have to come crashing down a little bit. But you learn from it. What did you learn from this specifically?
I learned to understand that don't fall in love with your ideals and don't worry about causes. You need to have your product and your process down, because when the time is right, that is what's going to attract and keep your customer. Which I knew from my HRIS platform, but I didn't know yet because I thought too much about it being me.
Yeah, it's almost like you got like a little distracted from something that you already knew worked.
Yes.
When you're like, oh, okay, why did I get distracted when I knew this was kind of the path?
Yes.
It's interesting too, and I know we were talking a little bit before this show, is that's a big struggle in the hair industry.
Sure.
I mean, I'm a hairstylist by trade and I own a salon, but I make most of my money in hair education and I have a hair line.
Yep.
And so I look at, and I'm like more of like I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm an artist. So I'm like, how to have all these, students that are salon owners and they don't actually make profit unless they're behind the chair. And I'm like, then why own a salon?
Well, that's the challenge. And that's because I'll jump a little bit in the timeline, but when I started Everbowl, I'll just quit, so there's no jump. I had a digital marketing agency that was my last big company before Everbowl, and I sold it. When I decided to do Everbowl as a passion project, and I'll never forget it because I was out to dinner with my parents and my wife and my kids, and I said, I'm going to start this restaurant. And my dad literally said 9 out of 10 restaurants fail. You're nuts, right? My mom said, you can't cook. Yeah. And my wife jokingly said, you just eat and make a mess in the kitchen. Like, what are you doing? Yeah. The truth is 9 out of 10 restaurants fail because 9 out of 10 restaurants are started by chefs. Same thing with salons. Why do 9 out of 10 stylists who own a salon not make money unless they're in the chair? Because they're stylists. They have to remember that when you own the salon, you're no longer a stylist. You're a business owner. And the same rules that apply in my payroll business, my digital marketing agency, my restaurant construction, and your salon are the same.
Right.
Do you understand how to build a profitable business and understand all the pieces that go into that? And that is a different skill set than cutting hair, making food, building a box, handling the technology on the payroll and HR company, recruiting. It doesn't matter what the job is or the career, the business, the underlying engine of the business is agnostic. It's the same. Right. And so as a stylist and a salon owner, you have to realize like, okay, I have to take my stylist hat off. Because I could walk in tomorrow and know nothing about salons and help on the business side of a salon. Doesn't mean I would know how to do the hair or the product. Because I don't.
Immediately look at like, hey, this is where you're losing money. This doesn't make sense.
What's our insurance cost and our rent and our labor and our insurance? And then where are we getting our supplies? And how much supplies do we get? And how are we pricing this? And how are we marketing to both stylists to come in and as well as customers? How are we raising capital? Do we have too much debt? All of the stuff that goes into those financial books, the P&L, the statement of cash flow, future growth, like the scale side of it. And then understanding when and how to scale, because scale is a tool not enough business owners use. They think of themselves that I can't scale because I have to own this one and perfect it. Yeah. And you're not going to perfect one. Scale actually is a tool to help you make more money. If I was breaking even on one salon, I would want a second salon.
Why would you do that?
Because of scale. Because if I'm trying to get better buying power of and again, I don't know anything, so some of this is going to be off, but philosophically, you'll get where I'm going. But the product that you use in the salon, and well, the more salons I own and the more product I buy, the better leverage I have with the vendors that I need to buy from.
Because you're buying larger.
I'm buying larger. Secondarily, I now have enough throughput of the product to look into starting my own line and reaching out to manufacturers and saying, can I go get my own shampoo, white label, if I can't create my own concoction, and now have my own margin and start to build a brand? And with scale, I can start to build a brand, right? Because I don't sell acai bowls. I'm building Everbowl, the brand. Right. I don't want to scale Jeff's salon, the product of cutting hair. I want to scale Supercuts. I'm using our sports clips. They built a brand. The stylists inside of that are less important to the brand as a whole. The acai bowl is less important to Everbowl as a whole. Scale allows me to start to lean into these things. It's also going to attract better stylists who want to be part of a growing company, better business people who want to be part of an organization, media attention, consumer awareness. Your marketing dollars start to expand. I'm just saying, it's not worth doing one. I know. It's not worth one.
I got another one.
Yeah, we're going to start it right now. You ready?
So how did you, you decided to start Everbowls?
Well,
what was the passion behind that specific product?
Yeah.
Because there's got to be, you already knew how to build a business, but then why did you why Everbowl?
So I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. I'm afraid of disease, and I like to eat exotic superfoods.
Okay, there you go.
And in 2009 to 2016, acai bowls were not prevalent. Like you could go to a small boutique coffee shop or health food restaurant and find an acai bowl. Obviously in Hawaii is where I had my first one, but they weren't bowl shops all over the place.
Yeah.
There was a few. I mean, one actually not too far from here that has been around since before me, but in San Diego specifically, there was not like an acai bowl focus. This Jamba Juices and Smoothie Kings, and they didn't have them.
Yeah.
And so neither did the Nectars and the brands that were, juice companies before. And I had sold my digital marketing agency in 2015, and I was trying to be retired at 32, and I'm too high strung to do that life.
When people have to say they want to retire, I'm like, that's a bad idea.
It was a thought.
It was a thought.
It was a thought. And my wife said it's a bad idea because I was driving her and my kids crazy.
Yeah.
She said, get out of this house.
I just means you were working too much and you needed to create more boundaries, but not retire.
Yeah. And now I'm just like, what are we doing today? And she's like, we're not doing anything today.
She's like, can you leave?
Yeah. She's like, get out of here.
I'm going to be with the kids.
Yeah. I got stuff to do and you're in our way.
Yeah.
And so I started it as a passion project, really, with the goal initially being I'm going to have a consulting business.
Essentially, you were retired then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then you're like, well, I'm going to...
It's just for passion. I was going to get an office and do some consulting because a lot of help some other entrepreneurs with business and scale. And I was like, I don't want to pay for an office. So why don't I put this acai bowl shop in the front and I'll have a little office in the back.
Oh, wow.
And I'll pay for my office with the acai bowl shop.
Yeah.
In worst case, I lose money with the acai bowl shop and I get all the write-offs and I'll take it against my consulting business and learn and leverage the benefit of some losses against taxes. And long and short of it is it took off. And
it's like when it's honestly, there's not that pressure there. So you're like, and you're not overthinking it in a way.
Well, I didn't need to make money. So I was doing the things that restaurant owners don't realize that they should be doing, which is I was building community. I was friendly to all my customers. I was giving them food. I was supporting the local sports teams and offices and, oh yeah, you know what, let me cater your thing. Yeah, I'm happy to do it because the $50 that I would have made selling $8 bowls for the 7 or 8 or 10 people, I just give it to them. And then they loved me. They loved Everbowl. It was a new product in Poway and they had never had this before. And it was like, oh my God, this is good for me. It's delicious. The owner's amazing. The brand is fun. And
was it profitable your first year?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Oh, beyond.
Just because you knew the model?
I gave it away the first month. So a few things, like I knew nothing about restaurants. I signed the lease on a whim. I had built the menu 2 weeks before because again, I'm not a chef. And the first day I had these kids, I'm like, how am I going to train these kids? And I said, why don't you guys go tell your friends and family, we'll just give away free bowls and you guys will train them. You tell high school kids about free bowls. We had a couple hundred people show up.
Oh, wow.
And this whole friends and family thing. And now how we launch Everbowls across the country is based off this. Wow. They all come, we get free food, we get to train our staff and the community gets to try a product they never had. And then from there, it was like, oh, okay. So then they started to come back and we were just over delivering. And I can lose money in my, digital marketing days, but cost of acquisition of a customer and the LTV, lifetime value of a customer, are very important metrics. And restaurant owners get too caught up in, well, I need to make sure that I don't give them that free added avocado on this order. Yeah. And now you left a bad taste in the customer's mouth and you cost yourself thousands over the lifetime. Right. I'll give you the $2 in avocado and say, how's your day? Enjoy it.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I can't decide between this one and this one. Tell you what, you pick one and I'll buy you the other one.
Right.
Taste it.
You know, it's crazy. It's think of it like a high-end hotel, right? You're creating like this experience for the clients where it's like you remember their names. You're not worried about these little extra things. And I think that that's so important that you're talking about this right now because entrepreneurs are notorious for being cheap bastards.
That's right.
Like literally they're worried about, and like you said, the lifetime value of a client. Like I educate my artists all the time. I'm like, hey, you could do a model call, give them hair, check in on them. Don't treat them like a model just because you came out of pocket with hair. Like, treat them like you would a client and they'll come back and they'll tell your friends.
That's correct. And think of it like planting.
Yes.
You're going to buy the seeds, you pay up front and you get fruit forever.
Right.
So I'm willing to invest in the community because if I believe in my product or my artistic capability, whatever it is that you're doing, if you believe in it, then all I need to do is get more people to experience it.
Right.
And guess what? If I give away a whole bunch of free food and I lose, it was going to lose anyway.
Right.
And there's a famous saying, if I'm going to go broke, I'm going to go broke with a packed dining room.
Right. Exactly.
Like, let's go broke giving away free food. If I'm left with $1,000 and I'm on my final Hail Mary.
And it's packed. Yeah.
Come on in, because if they're not coming back when they have to pay, I have a bad business and might as well fail fast and move on.
Right.
Right. And so I opened my first one in October of 2016. And then I signed my second lease at the end of November of 2016 and opened that in May of 2017. And then 2 more in October of 2017. And then 14 more than the year later.
How many total do you have now?
We're opening I don't know when this will air, but about 100. We have just about 100 open now, and 275 more under development.
And I was like, coming soon.
Yes.
Coming soon. I'm like, that's cool. They're like popping up all over.
Yeah, we just we open them all over the country.
But I love that you're making it like a culture, like a thing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where brand owners, entrepreneurs miss the mark. Is they're not creating this culture inside of their brand. Essentially, they're not making it the cool thing.
That's right.
Right? And think about, everyone is talking about an oversaturated market. And it's like, well, you got to stand out above the rest. Mm-hmm. It's because everybody's doing the same crap.
That's right.
So people are looking for something else to have connection with. You know what I mean? Talk about how you incorporated a little bit of like, almost like personal branding and culture inside of this. Is it just with like the staff? Is it more than just, I'm just thinking like how like entrepreneurs or hairstylists, how could they take this and apply it to their business?
Well, I never wanted a personal brand. I was a private guy. I didn't really do social media. I only really started doing my personal brand 2020. I don't even know what year we are. 22.
Okay.
20.
3 years. 2 years.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 years. Fame was never something I wanted. I didn't understand the power of it. I already had money and success. So like you had to convince, like, why do I want to, what's the point for me? And one of my investors and a very good friend who's a big social media, everyone knows him, was in my ear for years. And he said, dude, you're missing the mark. Like, you need to do it. And so finally I realized what I was missing and I did it. And then, now I speak on stages and shows and I have my own show and I understand the power of what that does, because me getting to connect with your audience exposes them now to my whole world.
Yeah, make sure the brand even bigger.
All of them, right? Like everything that I'm doing, whether it's my show or one of my companies or just the awareness of Everbowl in the sector. And I can help a franchisee.
Right.
And it also helped me with franchising because I was never going to franchise Everbowl. So I was corporately owned. I had all of them myself, vertically integrated. So I had my own import and manufacturing company. I went to Brazil and sourced my own acai. I had my own construction company just building Everbowls. And since day one, or since store one. And so I had this vertically integrated machine and that was great. And I had 30 Everbowls when COVID happened and things got derailed, right?
Right.
Because that's the part, like I say, what do you do? I'm an entrepreneur. Okay. And then they try to tell me I'm a hairstylist or a chef. And what they fail to realize is as an entrepreneur, you're a problem solver. That's really all you are. You're a business fireman or firewoman.
Right.
You're putting out fires every single day. And if you don't learn how to prevent forest fires, you will be inundated and eventually suffocated and die.
Right.
Right. So it's, there's a fire. Let's put it out. And then what can we do to clear the brush so the fire doesn't happen next time and make it more fire resistant and fireproof. And if you look at your business and your life that way and you're like, I hate that part.
Yeah.
You're never going to enjoy entrepreneurship.
Right.
You just are not.
Right.
And so through the journey of Everbowl, I never wanted to franchise because I didn't need them. I didn't want to have winners and losers. I didn't want to do those things. And when COVID occurred and I had to temporarily shut down all my restaurants on March 18th, lay off over 500 people, and my whole business disappeared overnight, or at least we thought it would, right? Because nobody knew what was going on.
Right.
My competitors were at home crying like victims, and you can't be a victim. Like you can go through the 5-minute pity party, which I do, and you can have that moment where you experience what you need to experience when you get punched in the life is life, right?
Right.
But then it's what's next? Like what optionality do you have? What tools in your toolbox? And vertical integration is one way that I have used, and I recommend everyone look into it.
Tell us a little bit more about vertical integration, because a lot of people don't know what that means.
So basically you look at your business and your repeatable business issues and problems, and you learn how you can either acquire or start a division or a company inside of your company to satisfy it. So as a hairstylist who owns your own salon, where are you sourcing all of your repeatable product? Well, if you have your own line and you start to create it, well, now you've turned something you had to buy anyway into an offshoot that may make money for you and bring down the cost for you of your current stuff. So like mine was acai. I was importing it from Brazil, very expensive. So I went to Brazil. I met the factories. It's a global world. I started to import my own. So now I don't have to pay a middleman to do it. So my food costs go lower. And then I created a brand around it called Unevolved Products, and my own acai is proprietary to Everbowl. So you can't go get my acai from anyone else because it's just mine. So when COVID happened and I had to shut my restaurants down, I launched a direct-to-consumer acai bowls in a box with my own acai because I had it.
Oh, wow.
And then I got on QVC and I did $9 million of revenue in my first 4 airings, and then became 21 airings later plant-based product of the year, and we made 8 figures selling acai on QVC.
Oh, wow.
I never wanted to go on QVC. I never wanted to have a direct-to-consumer product line. But because I had vertically integrated that component, I had the ability. And from that, people see it around the country. And I was just in Southern California. I got 500 franchise requests because they got to buy my product, eat it at home and go, well, wow, you do have retail stores. None are here. I'm an entrepreneur. And now we franchise, and now we have franchises around the country.
So did COVID, did it slow you guys down, or did you see another opportunity?
So this is politically incorrect for some people, but you'll understand if you're an entrepreneur. COVID might have been the best thing that ever happened to my business. At the time, it was one of the worst.
Yeah.
But as a result of it, we have franchises all over the country. We've made millions of dollars more in sales that we never expected to make outside of our boxes. And then my construction company, which was just building Everbowls, is now working with some of the biggest brands, and it'll be a 9-figure company on its own because of the COVID pivot.
It's like you figured out, and now your stores are open, but this other opportunity came available.
Oh yeah, which I wouldn't have looked into.
Yeah.
It was never in my purview. QVC, why do we want to go in there?
Right.
I want to sell my store products to the store.
It's like an opportunity.
I saw it as I needed it. I had options. You can't sit idle, right?
Right.
Momentum is important. So if you drop me off in the middle of the ocean right now and I don't see land, I'm picking a direction and swimming.
Right.
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not just going to drown waiting and living in that, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do nothing.
Right.
A bad plan is better than no plan.
Right.
Right?
You got to do something.
You got to do something.
Yeah.
And from doing something, from us getting our acai and saying, we laid everybody off on March 18th. March 19th, I asked my 4 executives to meet me in the office. Granted, I just fired them. 3 showed up. 1 said, you fired me, you're not paying me, I'm not coming in. Their choice.
Right.
3 of us plus me are there. And I said, what do we have available to us today to do something productive? And it wasn't my idea. It was one of my executives said, we have 40,000 pounds of acai and pitaya sitting in freezers. What if we put them in a box and reach out to our customers who are stuck at home and see if they want them delivered? So we spun up a Shopify website that day, called it Later Bowls, put 10 bowls in a box with granola, and reached out to our customer base of phones and emails we had from our loyalty program who were within 3 miles of our stores, because I now have 28 ghost kitchens with product, and said, place an order on Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll deliver Friday morning with dry ice in a box, and you can put in your freezer, and you can have the bowl that you would have come for at home while you're safe. Right?
Do you guys still do that?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No, it was just a moment. But from there, I was like, wow, this is really working. How do I scale this?
Yeah.
Because that's where my brain goes. And then I was like, QVC. So I reached out to my relationship network, which relationships is pretty much the most important tool you can have as an entrepreneur. And said, who do we know who can get me on QVC? And a friend of mine, Todd from Texas and Icon Meals, has been on QVC a bunch, connected me with a buyer. The buyer loved the product. We had an area.
You pitch them on QVC. I didn't know you could pitch something.
Oh yeah, we've plant-based. Everbowl was plant-based product of the year in 2021. I've been on QVC over 20 times.
Wow.
And it generated us 8 figures in revenue.
Yeah.
Which, when you have closed restaurants and the future looks dire, and now you're making millions of dollars selling your product that you already have, now you're excited.
So you're selling on QVC the bowls?
Oh yes, absolutely. The same Later Bowl package we sold on QVC, and then all I did is, you can't sell on QVC. I can't be like, I don't get to own the customer. They're their customers.
Right.
So I put recipe card with a QR code, and through the QR code, it went to my website. So you had to learn about the retail side of Everbowl, which I couldn't pitch.
Right.
And now they saw it. And then it was, hey, do you have one of these near us? Do you franchise? And I said, no. But then 500 of them later, you only have to hit me over the head apparently 500 times before I'll realize that there's an opportunity.
Right.
So then it was like, well, we build them all with WeBuild, our construction company. We provide all the food through our Unevolved Products arm.
Right.
We have the culture, we have the marketing, we have the brand.
Right.
Let's franchise this business. So we did. And from there, our largest franchisee is Drew Brees, and he has 160 locations. And we just opened with...
Now you do it from other companies as well.
No, Everbowl.
Oh, just for Everbowl.
I'm saying Drew Brees is a franchisee of Everbowl. He's got 160 locations of just Everbowl coming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jason Tatum of the Celtics just opened his first one in Boston, and he's opening 4 more.
I see it as a business opportunity.
It is. Yeah, exactly. And franchising is a great business opportunity. And if I was in the salon space, my question would be, if I was a partner, if we partnered before you sold yours and we were going to talk, you said, okay, Jeff, what do you think we should do? I want to build a brand around the salon, and then I want to scale it. I want to sell franchises. I want to create an environment for the artist and stylist who doesn't have the business acumen yet and doesn't know what to do. Let's give them a business in a box so they can own their community, which they already do, make them a business owner, and put all the process in place, the SOPs and the things that they don't understand there for them so they can make a profit, grow their business, and get both sides. And help them in the area that they need help.
I would say the biggest struggle as a salon owner myself, it was just like overhead was always too high.
Yes.
And it always is a numbers game. It's like, okay, but what
Rent a chair, right?
Yes. Artists struggle with like, they see the numbers, but they don't feel like they can charge their clients to make the money. So then I'm like, well, you're kind of just screwing yourself. Like you have to have your margins big enough to where you're actually profitable.
That's right.
But it's interesting to like hear your brain just like thinks through problem solving. You're just like this.
That's my art. Yeah. Like you're an artist with hair. Like you could probably, not mine because I don't have enough, but if I had
you also extensions?
Yeah, maybe. I might need them. But I'm sure you could look at someone's hair and immediately you can see all the opportunities that that head of hair could have.
Right.
And what you could do with it to bring out whatever it is that you see, to bring out, their eyes, their cheeks, whatever it is that, I don't know that world. I look at a business and I realize that we need to scale this thing. And how do we do that profitably?
Right.
And that's kind of that's my genius,
yeah.
right? So I didn't ever want to be an entrepreneur because I didn't know what that was.
Right.
And I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. But what I'm very good at is starting, scaling, and growing businesses. And then I like to exit them and do it again because I like different industries.
You figured it out.
It's fun.
So you have a book that you wrote in 2023.
I technically wrote it in 2021.
2021.
Yep.
Okay.
I was too chicken to put it out till 2023.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you always want to write a book?
Never.
So I'm writing a book right now and I'm working with like ghostwriter. She's like, why do you want to write a book? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah, I didn't.
I just feel like I should.
Yeah.
So why did you feel called to do that? And tell us a little bit about your book.
So I got approached by LinkedIn. So I have 2 courses with LinkedIn Learning. Okay. And so I got hired in 2020 to do these 2 courses with LinkedIn.
Okay.
A friend of mine who owns a publishing company and they do the ghostwriting and all that for business books, saw the course and said, this course should be a book. I said, great. And so we did the ghostwriting thing, many 8-hour interviews, and then they wrote the book, and then I read the book, and it wasn't my voice talking to me, and it just didn't feel like me, and I didn't like it.
Really?
I didn't. I was like, this is not my voice. It was like somebody else was telling my stories wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And it's your life. It's your message. So I was very self-conscious about it. And so I was like, well, I don't know how to write. And this doesn't. And so.
Did it feel like inauthentic or just
kind of? Yeah. Like if you read it and you knew me, you'd be like, that's not him. And I didn't like that. And so.
Well, didn't it become a best-selling?
Well, yeah, but that was so.
Like we put it out, it must have done well.
Well, for a year, it did nothing.
Okay.
And then he called me and he goes, look, man, you're going to have to put this thing out or I need that money back from that little advance. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll put it out. Because like you said, entrepreneurs are cheap. I don't like giving money back. So what can we do to make it right? So we did another ghostwriter and me sat down and then they said, let's go through it. Instead of you doing an interview, let's go chapter by chapter.
So you kind of rewrote it a little bit?
Read it to me back and expand in your own words. And so I kind of did that. And then they were able to kind of take it. And then it sounded much more like me.
Okay.
And they started to realize that I don't use those kind of words. I use these kind of words. And all of a sudden it felt more me. And then we got to something that I was comfortable. And then I still sat on it for 6 more months because what if no one buys it? And I'm not an author and I didn't want a personal brand. So I didn't really have a personal brand.
Isn't it interesting? Like you had built yourself like this big name in all your companies. So it's almost like fear of failure. Like, I can't put that out if it sucks. I'm known for being awesome.
Yes, because guess what? A book is there forever.
Yeah.
A book is, someone could pick that up and now you read it and I don't know, it's a book.
Yeah.
And then I was like, also, who reads books? In my head, like I read books, but most of my friends don't read books.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have a lot of friends that will buy the book to buy the book, but what am I going to do with this thing?
Right.
And why am I going to use it? Well, then I launched my personal brand in 2022. Okay. And so then I was like, okay, now I have a personal brand. Now I realize the power of having the magnet of the book and I'm speaking on a stage and they'll buy the books and I'll be able to leave it behind and it starts to incorporate more around what I want to teach. And then I also realized that the message that I was delivering in the book, it's not my life story. I'm teaching you how to build the relationship capital because as much as I'm good at scaling and vertical integration, we didn't talk about it, but 85 to 90% of all my wealth and success is because of who I know and not a single thing to do with what I know.
Wow.
And when you realize that, how can I help more people create generational wealth, success in their business, success in life, build relationship capital? And that's what I'm teaching in that book. Okay. And so then I felt more of like a call and an obligation to get it out.
Yeah.
And I didn't care about the sales from it. So we put it out and luckily it hit bestseller and people.
Tell us the name of the book again.
Relationship Bank Account.
So when I read that, I was like, ooh, what does that mean? I want to have a better relationship with my bank account.
Yes.
What do you teach specifically in it?
Sure. To realize that relationships people look at wrong. Friendships they understand, but professional relationships they don't. You got to think of it like a bank account. You really do. So we have a ledger. We have a bank account together. Whether we see it or not, it's there. And this is our first time hanging out. So we're both getting to know each other, and hopefully we're both making what we'll call a deposit into that account.
Right.
But if tomorrow I call you and say, can I borrow your car? You might say, yeah, no, sure, Jeff, no problem, take it. Okay, well, that's a withdrawal because I'm asking for something. It's about me. It's not about our relationship. It's a withdrawal. It's me. So the more me's intake and the more withdrawals I make, I become broke. Instead of realizing that if I make deposits in a bunch of people's bank accounts, regardless of what's in it for me, I'm wealthy in relationships. So if I call you, instead of me saying that, if I said, hey, I know you're moving, can I come give you a hand? Because I'm free that day and I just wanted to hang out and get to know you better. And you're like, oh, sure, I'd love an extra set of hands. And I give you a recommendation for a restaurant when you first get to where you're going. And then I mentioned something else. Oh, and I have 2 friends there that I think you would love. And I connect you with some people there. I've just made a bunch of deposits. Now, what do I get out of it? Nothing.
Right.
But you're going to say, you know what, Jeff's a really nice guy. And your family's going to talk about how cool, Jeff recommended this place. Jeff has been great. Jeff, you know about Everbowl. You know about my book. You know about my construction company. Someone's going to talk to you, go, yeah, I'm looking at a franchise. You're like, oh, my friend Jeff has this thing called Everbowl. And without me even asking, you're just going to promote me in your world because we help our friends. We help people that we like. So understanding that bank account mindset is going to change how you look at that business networking thing. Yeah. Which is, this is what I do and here's my business card and you should definitely come. Like if I'm a stylist, this is everything. Because people are going to want to work and hang out with people they like.
Right. It's so interesting that like people don't understand that concept, and it's kind of more like scarcity driven where it's like, hey, I'll give you only, it's got to be equal.
Yes.
And that's not how it works. It's like, hey, I'm going to give you, like you said, I'm going to reach out to you. I'm going to put a deposit on you. Yes. And then they naturally promote without even thinking. It's like, when did people forget to just show up and be generous? And
That's right.
Nice? Because I do believe it always circles back around.
Well, I'll tell you, and it's in my book, and it's one of the biggest cementing lessons I ever had in this exact thing. I started my payroll company. I was doing okay. We were doing $250,000 a year in revenue. So not great, but fine. And barely making ends meet, barely growing. But I lived in a community. And I went to the grocery store. And in the grocery store, they're the same 3 checkout people that you see there regularly. And I'm the kind of guy where I'm going to say hi, make eye contact, and have a brief conversation with you. Humanize the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, over the course of 18 months, 12 months, I got to know the checkout clerks. One of them had dogs, went to Dog Beach. She knew I had a little kid in the payroll company. And one day, out of the blue, she says to me, you have a payroll company and my brother's having this issue. Do you mind helping him? I don't know who he is. Most people in that time go, I don't think I'm the right, because it's a checkout clerk at Albertsons. Like it's not somebody that I have I'm busy in life. Of course, give him my number. I'm happy to help. He reaches out. I help him. Again, not knowing what he is. Well, he had over 1,000 employees. It was a multiple hundreds of $1,000s a year account. And it doubled my revenue overnight. And he became my biggest client, which now allowed me to sell downstream to all the clients that were, because before that, my biggest client was 47 employees.
Oh, wow.
So now I can go to a 300 employee company and tell them I have 1,000 plus, so you are nowhere near my biggest customer. I understand the needs, and I doubled my revenue overnight because I made friends with a checkout clerk at Albertsons.
How many times are we missing opportunities because we just don't connect with people? Like you said, just be human to connect with them and look them in the eyes.
I mean, and then how do you get in front of the people you want to get in front of? Because I work with a lot of celebrities and famous people, and a lot of them are my partners, and a lot of them are my investors, from, Drew Brees and Shaq and Jason Tatum, who invest in my companies, to Tariq El Moussa and a bunch of others. And everyone's like, how? Well, there's a lot of ways. Number one, you can get introduced. But number two, if you want to hang out with me and I'm too busy to meet you, and you become friends with my wife, and my wife says, we're having dinner with so-and-so. Guess what? I'm having dinner with so-and-so, right? So everybody is someone's brother, sister, aunt, cousin, friend, uncle, spouse. So if you predetermine the value of somebody based on whatever perceived notion you have, like, oh, it's the checkout clerk at Albertsons. They're not driving a Ferrari and they can't help me. You're missing the boat. Because the person driving the Ferrari is busy, because that's why they're driving a Ferrari. And so you want to understand that everybody has value. Everybody is a person. It doesn't matter who they are, from the delivery driver who drops off your Uber or DoorDash to the president of the United States. The DoorDash driver can add more to you than the president of the United States. Because they will.
That's the one. I love that you're sharing that, because I think oftentimes we just get like almost like tunnel vision, and it's like you forget to just be friendly, be human, say hello. And connections. Everyone, I always say you're like one connection away.
That's right.
And it's such a small world. So you've built like tons of success. You're married, you have kids.
Yes.
So how I mean, I'm an entrepreneur myself and I have kids, and it's how do you balance it? Like, do you do date nights? Like, how do you balance having time with your family and building big shit?
Well, the truth is there is no balance. There's moments and seasons, and I look at businesses as other kids. So I have 2 living daughters, and then I have my 5 companies. So I have 7 kids, 2 that take priority,
right?
5 or 7 that need my attention. And then I have my wife. So I really have these 8 things that need me.
Right.
And there are periods and times where if you're a parent, you'll understand. But when a newborn is born into the family, your other kids have to understand that mommy and daddy are going to be busy attending to the needs of the most needed issue, which is the baby. Right. But if one of the other kids hurts themselves, the baby will suffer and I'm going to go there. So in my life, I always address it to if one of my kids, real kids, my daughters is struggling, my business is going to take a side seat.
Right.
But if everyone's healthy and living, then I'm going to give more attention to where it's needed and the squeaky wheel is going to get the grease. And sometimes I have to get recentered. And sometimes one of them are going to smack me in the face and say, it's time to realize that we're here.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the business, and sometimes it's my wife, and sometimes it's my kids. There's no way to be remarkable at all of them at the same time because it's just not enough me's. Right. I can't be 100% present with my daughters and my wife and my businesses. But again, I go back to what I told my dad. I am teaching my daughters because I believe that's my job to show them that when you do something, you do it as with everything you have. So as a business owner, I start we now work with a bunch of other clients, and we just spun it off last year. I'm now going to have to put more attention into it. So I'm traveling more for that. We built a facility in Atlanta, and I'm traveling around the country working with big clients and doing big things. And my youngest is like, hey, Dad, I have a horse show and I really want you there. I'll be there.
Yeah.
But on a random Tuesday, I might not be home for dinner.
Do you ever have dad guilt? Is that a thing?
All the time.
Okay, because I thought it was just like a woman thing, but
all the time.
I feel like as I'm talking to my husband, he has the same thing. He's like, I'm going out and working and providing, but at the same time, we still have that dad guilt.
And you have to choose, and there's no easy answer. It's personal, but I choose to have more quality over quantity of time in all my things. Yeah. And I want my kids to know that if they need me, they know that if they ever pick up a phone and say, Dad, I need you, I will walk out of this interview right this second. And I don't care if it's with the biggest client, a podcast, or opportunity. Right. They always have a trump card. Right. And they can pull it at any time they want. Right. But if they don't pull it, they also need to understand that Dad's doing his thing. Just like when you guys are with your friends, I'm not like giving you guys the guilt. Even though I'd love to hang out with you, you need to live your life too. We need to do it, and we all need to be the best version of ourselves. Right. And this is our life, right? Like this is our story. I think
it's interesting. I feel like entrepreneurs, there's like time's not really a thing because you can't have specific hour. It's like you said, if your kid needs you, you go have quality time with them.
That's right.
For women, I feel like we're always trying to multitask and juggle and all this thing. And I'm like, I got to this point where I'm like, I need to accept help and nannies because my kids are just going to remember me being on my phone, and that's not really quality time. Sure. So I think it's like so important to have those moments of quality time. Your kids are older. When they were little, was this tricky? Was it hard?
Of course.
Did you always kind of find your way back to make them top priority?
I did always find my way back. I won't say it wasn't after pushing the boundaries too far and having those moments where you messed up. Right. I've messed up too much, but there's no way to play the game without. Right. If it's just the reality of, I mean, you can look at most careers, regardless of who you are. A real fireman might spend 3 days living in the firehouse every single week. And an orthopedic surgeon might have to spend 70 hours in the hospital and miss this, that, and the other thing. And it's just the way the world works. We have to be realists and say, you can't be there for every moment. So I'm going to be there for the ones that matter the most to them. Right. And if they need me, I'm there. Or if they want me, I'm there. Like one of my daughter she travels for my youngest competitive horses and horse shows. And she's like, Dad, I want you at this horse show. And so I walked away from a very, very large meeting that cost me personally a lot of money. But it was a no question issue for me because my daughter said, Dad, I really want you at this one. I'm there. Yeah. But if it's just another one, another Saturday soccer game, I'm not going to be at them all, even though I want to be. Right. I'm going to be as many as I can. Right. But I need them to learn that too when they become adults, because otherwise they're going to be at all their kids' stuff, but they may be living paycheck to paycheck and struggling and have a tough marriage because finance is the number one reason for divorce, right? It adds a stress layer that, people say money can't buy happiness. It's true, but it's way easier to be happy when your needs are taken solved. Yeah. And the only way you can do that in this crowded field of business and competitive nature, and even as an employee working up the corporate ladder, is to demonstrate that you're willing to sacrifice other things for this goal.
Right. How does it work with your relationship with your wife? Do you guys spend a lot of time together, or does she travel with you? And
she travels with me a lot. She's been a stay-at-home mom since the beginning. So she's had the kids. Obviously, the kids are older now, so it's a much easier circumstance.
Right.
And before my oldest went to college, she's a sophomore now, we had a personal driver for a couple of years, which was tough to lose. But yeah, no, she definitely travels with me a bunch, and we get a lot of time together. I mean, obviously, we go through the seasons where I travel 130 nights of the year as well, so I'm gone a lot. And sometimes she goes, "You've been gone too long, and this needs to stop."
She's like,
she needs to, or she'll come with me, or we'll plan a trip. We try to go on a couple of cool trips, like we just did Japan, and got to spend 2 weeks together, just us, and turn the computer off and the phone off and TV. So I do those things too. Yeah. But I wish there wasn't an easy answer, and if anyone figures it out, please call me.
I know. My husband and I, when we lost everything when the market crashed, and our relationship was like, whoa, we were not doing as good as we are thinking. So we go on like date nights at least once or twice a week. Yeah. But it's hard when you're building a business, because it's like you come home and you've got the business on the brain, and you have to kind of like turn it off and be like, okay, I got to be present with my kids or my wife or whatever it is. Yeah. So I feel like all entrepreneurs are still kind of like going through that. And for me, it's like it's a weekly effort, it's like, okay, put the phone down, walk away, be with the kids, especially because my kids, I have the older ones, but now I have to look for babies too. So
yes. And the babies need more of your attention. Yeah. Right? Because it's like a startup. Right. My Everbowl needs I have a president now who can run the day to day, so it needs less of me. Yeah. WeBuild needs more of me because it's more of a baby in the infancy stage because of how we spun it off. So it's kind of that same thing. Like your young kids need more of mom. Right. Your older kids need mom, but they also want their friends, and they probably don't want too much of mom. They don't. Right? I'm like, hey, I haven't seen you in a few days. Yeah. How's it going? They're like, oh, well, I'll text you later. Yeah. So what's your big vision with Everbowl? Are you just going to keep scaling it and keep franchising it, or what's next? Someone will eventually sell it. Unless you want to buy it today, I'll keep it. Okay, then it's sold. No, look, the goal is we're in 30 states and I'd like to get to all 50, and we're looking at some international opportunities. And it's what I'm doing, right? Like I like to sell companies. I have investors. I like to get them all a return that is very healthy. And I enjoy what I do. I enjoy the process. Yeah. I like to put teams in place. I like to go where I'm good. And then once it's surpassed my ability, either sell it or let someone else run it. But you're not attached to it. You're like, hey, I got it to where it needs to go. I'm 41. Yeah. Like I'm still not ready to retire. I'm not ready to do nothing. And so if I'm going to do something, I have two speeds, 100% and off. I'm like a puppy, all in or all out. And so when I'm all in, I got to do it. And I like to do big things. I like to disrupt markets. I have some ideas for what's next, but really I'm not focused on it. WeBuild, which is my construction company, is where we work with a lot of scale brands, and we're having a ton of fun doing some cool stuff that is disrupting this market. And I like to go into industries that I have zero experience in and showcase how I can leverage relationships and go. I need you in the hair industry. Let's go. I told you, this is like, it's like my goal. I'm like, I've got to figure this out for artists. Like I've coached thousands of hairstylists, and I've never met one that their business was able to like take off without them being behind the chair. Yeah, you got to. We can solve that. Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny because even me, I stepped away from doing hair and I was just doing education and that. But it's still, I'm like, this is like a broken model in the hair industry. It is. We need to figure this out. So. Well, and look, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but there's a future world. Go watch the Jetsons. You know what the future is coming, right? In everything. Right. Where you've got to think about, if I'm a stylist, and it might be 20 years from today, so it might not be us. It might be the up-and-comers that are still in high school who are going to go into this field. It's just like construction, right? My wife, I met her and she was in cosmetology school. Oh, really? Yeah, she was going to be a hairstylist. So I'm very familiar with that industry, and we have a lot of friends in that industry. And I think that there is a model, right, for hairstylists out there today to start to think about their business differently and start to put themselves as a consumer and say, okay, how can we approach this where I'm not trading my skill that I can only do one person at a time or two or however that works. You can't monetize that at scale. Right. So what can we think about, and how can we build a different kind of brand and a different experience, right? Solo salons, I know, tried that. But that's a somewhat broken model too, because internally they all still have that same challenge. Right. So it's, what can you create? And can you create a much more experiential opportunity? And there's a lot of options, right? But then there's also the throughput of byproduct and connection and realizing that we can pull together and build something, which is, franchise is one, but there's other ways to do it. And so I would love to.
It's interesting in my brain. It's like, okay, you got on a hair product, you got on a hairline, you do. You have to vertically
integrate.
Yes.
And all the biggest brands in the world do. I mean, you look at McDonald's, they own all the real estate. Mm-hmm. They are the largest toy distributor in the world. Wow. And they don't sell a single toy. Wow. Just from the Happy Meal.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right? Like you start to realize Google bought YouTube. Mm-hmm. They vertically integrated the fact that you might go to that to search. So now you're part of their ecosystem. Mm-hmm. Coca-Cola owns Sprite, Dasani water, because you may not drink a Coke every day, but they're owning the entire drink line. Right. So the gum companies own 20 of them. Mm. The cereal companies look at General Mills and Kellogg's, they own 13 brands that compete. Right. But you're going to buy cereal, so 13 out of 25 of them are theirs. Buy one of those 13. Right? They're vertically integrating the fact that they can't get every consumer isn't going to like Cheerios. Right. Maybe you like Rice Krispies. Well, I own them both. Right. So let's play that game. And then it's just the more you can start to see that, one's going to take off bigger. I mean, WeBuild will probably be bigger than Everbowl. That's just cool. Yeah. Right? And you get the opportunities become. Before Everbowl, right? No, I started WeBuild because the first Everbowl cost me too much money to build. Okay. So I started a construction company. Way around that, yeah. So, Again, I'm solving my problem through vertical integration. And I'm a startup guy, so I start companies more than acquire. See. But a lot of people, a good friend of mine, Cody Sanchez, she pitches acquire. Don't start. And for a lot of people who are like, I don't know the first thing and that's scary, then go buy one. Right. And I can't afford it. There's always a way. Right. So what entrepreneurs that might be listening to this, no matter what their trade or what field they're in, what advice would you give them if, they're kind of essentially paycheck to paycheck and they're like, should I sell? Should I get out? Like, what advice would you give that entrepreneur? As a business owner entrepreneur? Yeah. That you have to you have to do an inventory of where you're at. And you have to decide, can I scale this business away from paycheck to paycheck? It's too hard and it's not a good quality of life if you're just barely getting by. Now, there are periods where you're going to just barely get by. Amazon lost money for the first 10 years. But they were building something that they saw the opportunity. Yeah, right. But if I'm a hairstylist and I have a hair salon in a suburb in America with a captive audience without much room for it to expand because there's just not a lot of turnover in the people who live in my community. Right. And I'm barely getting by. If you love what you're doing and enjoy it, then keep doing it. And you are an entrepreneur who bought yourself a job, and that's fine. But if your goal is more wealth, more opportunity and scale and bigger, you've got to figure out either to how you can change the dynamic of this and expand outside of your community and take on more and scale, or you sell it and you try to do something else. Because for a lot of them, selling it and just working as a stylist, they'll make the same money and have and have a better work-life balance. Yes, I know. Like I said, I've trained like thousands of hairstylists, and a lot of them, they end up doing that. They're like, this is not worth managing all these people. I'm not making that much more. I might as well go do my own thing. I mean, I hired a guy in my construction company who used to own his own construction company. And we do a lot of manufacturing. I say construction, it's more, we make everything. So I could make all your furniture in your house and in restaurants and gyms and signage. And we do all this big manufacturing stuff. And so he did all of the exhibits in the zoo and SeaWorld and stuff, like for his company. And he sold it. And now he works for me. Oh, wow. And when you ask him, he goes, I hated the business side. I want to manufacture. I want to be in there building stuff. I don't want to deal with payroll and insurance and bidding and I don't want to deal with it. So for him, that life was not what he wanted. For me, that's all I want to do. Right? So I need to go build and I need to create. And so I feel for stylists or any entrepreneur who's sitting kind of in that idle capacity, you're kind of just floating in sea. Eventually you're going to pick a direction and swim. Right. And you can always change your mind tomorrow, but what does that look like? And if you're not sure, that's where mentors and coaching and, reaching out to you through your education platform and those who have done it, that's where the relationship capital comes in, because I can pick up the phone and within 2 phone calls, get answers in any industry for things I need to understand. It's not hard because I have the relationships and I can ask questions and favors and I can make a withdrawal because I don't do that very often. Yeah. Right. But I think it's interesting. What I find that hairstylists don't do is they don't reach outside the hair industry. That's right. So, and it comes back to the point, it's like, why would you take advice from somebody who's broke, who doesn't have results? That's right. Reach out to somebody else who has that business hat, and then you can be the artist and they can be the business person, and you're kind of writing in your own genius and in your lanes, and that's how it works out. And in the absence of a few stylists who probably are the stylists to the stars and get exorbitant amounts of money to do the same styling, right? I'm sure Kim Kardashian's personal stylist makes disproportionately more than everyone else, right? Take those away because those are outliers. That's just not like, that's the Kobe Bryants and the Michael Jordans of the world. Like, that's fine. They exist. But realistically, there's like anything, most stylists shouldn't make that much money because being a stylist is available and there's enough women and men who are stylists and there are very good ones. So how do you differentiate yourself in a very crowded field? And it isn't by doing the same thing and hoping you're just going to be a little bit better because the average consumer, me, isn't sophisticated enough to know the difference. Right? Even though you could be twice as good as the person next to you, if I just meet you both right now, I don't know how to identify that. So personal branding is one way, right? Creating a buzz around you, even if it's outside of it, talking with people outside of your industry and realizing that, okay, what other crowded fields have people separated themselves in? And what can I learn from what they did or were doing? Right? And you can see that there are people who have accomplished this in singing, in construction, in dental work, right? Like there are some amazing dentists that have built incredible personal brands that have a waiting list forever for getting their teeth cleaned.
Well, it's interesting because that's one of the things, the biggest thing I'm coaching my artists on right now is I'm like, it's a sea of beautiful hair. And like, you have to stand out. And their biggest problem was like, oh, I'm introverted. I don't want to be. And you said, you're like, I didn't want to be out there. Like I was like cool running my business. I didn't want to do it. But then I almost feel like it's almost selfish to not. Right. Cause it's like, who are you not impacting and who are you not reaching? Well, and I know we're like kind of still wrapping up, but what have you found in creating your personal brand? How has it personally benefited you? Yeah, you've got the successful business, but I feel like for anybody who starts on personal brand, you grow as an individual. What have you found in that experience for you?
Well, I think it validates you before you get there. Forever, up until I really leaned into it, I was the most unknown known guy in my circles, right? So I could be around 5 people that every single person would know, and there'd be the picture, and you're like, oh my God, that's so-and-so, and then me, and no one cares because they don't know who I am. And that's fine because they knew who I was, and that's all I cared about. I'm not looking to be known by strangers. But when I did the personal brand and then I got the validation and then people started to say, oh, that's Jeff from Everbowl. Now Everbowl is being talked about without me marketing Everbowl. And that's Jeff from his show. And that's Jeff who was partners with Neil Patel in digital marketing. They are talking about me in a different light and allowing it to where I don't have to double sell you on, oh, I am successful and here's what I'm doing. Now it's, I'm successful in what I'm doing. And now let's just talk about you and me and is there an opportunity? So it shrunk down the onboarding of new relationships in the sales process and everything I do. It's created an abundance of opportunities. Like Everbowl is going to be featured, not as we're not raising money, but we're going to be on Shark Tank as a different side because I got to do a deal with a friend of mine, Damon John, and his investments. I don't get to do all these things if I don't meet Damon while speaking on stages together and building those relationships. And now I'm doing business with the higher echelon, right? But as I would go back to that salon thing, and these are just ideas, don't take any of these to spirit, but these are just like, I'm starting to think about, well, what are salons missing and why do people go to other places and how can I attract? And I look at vertically integrated, I'm like, well, what if I add some of those other therapy type environment things where maybe there's a sauna and a steam room that my clients can use on off days, right? Some reason for them to come back into my salon and hang out with us more regularly and not charge them because I can buy a sauna for $3,000, right? And I know it's got nothing, maybe it's a bad one, but I'm just giving you I would start to think about those kinds of ideas and say, what do my clients do and how can I add more value and say, like I do with my recruiting agency, I only worked with you for my payroll client. I didn't go to anyone else. So you got the benefit of when I sold you on my HRIS tool, we also provide recruiting service to you free of charge. What? Free of charge.
Oh, so much value.
Because you're going to give 20% of the first year comp to someone else. So you're going to hire 2 people this year at $100,000. That's $40,000 out your pocket. I'm giving it to you for free. And they're like, oh. So now you're creating experiential. You're creating community. You're creating buzz. Or you build a community list of you white label one of those little private apps or a Facebook group of just your clients. And you showcase this new thing you did on some woman's hair that is a new style for 2025. And now your other clients can see it and go, oh, that's really cool. And maybe you find one of those AI tools where they can put that hair on their face, right? And again, it's silly, but these little things differentiate you from everybody else.
Right. It's a culture.
Like think about Crumble Cookie. All they did different was they come up with new cookies every Sunday, and that drop sense a sense of urgency. But every cookie company can do that.
Yeah.
Crumble made it fun.
Yeah. Isn't that so funny? It's like you find something, you're like, oh, let's throw this out there. And they're like, nobody else is doing this,
Yes.
So you have to stay ahead of the curve by just trying something that nobody's doing and adding value to your customers.
Yes. Yeah. Or creating an environment like with a man cave. If you're targeting women and they're with their husband, I don't want to go sit in the salon. But if I have a guy lounge, that's fun. I'm like, okay, and maybe you also do men's haircuts because there's a barber shop right in near my house, and I think it's called V's or V's Barbershop, and I had never been there. I don't have a lot of hair, and a friend of mine was like, "Hey, let's go to V's," and we walk in, and first thing they did was offer me and him a beer or a drink while we were waiting. Yeah, and I'm like, "Well, that was cool."
That's cool, yeah.
And could it be a glass of wine and a cheese charcuterie plate? Yeah. Like it doesn't have to be crazy,
right?
But all of a sudden now it's an experience above and beyond the product, which unfortunately is a commodity to a lot of people.
Right.
Obviously, you're an artist, so women understand and men understand who go, the end product has to be great.
Right.
But for a new customer,
gotta be experienced.
It's like, what else am I getting?
Yeah.
And why would I pay you more?
Right.
Oh, you're $15 more, or $20 more, or $30 more, but I can have a glass of wine and some cheese and talk with my friends while we're getting our hair dried or whatever it is. Right? Like it's a different experience. And that's where you've got to think about, because that's scalable.
Yeah. I love that too, because like I always tell my artists, I'm like, think about a high-end hotel. You can have two hotels that are built the exact same, but then you come in and they have chocolates and a pillow and they know your name and use your anniversary and this and that.
Yes.
Which hotel are you going to go back to?
100% of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, Sports Clips did it.
Yeah.
Right? Sports Clips, all they did was take Supercuts and throw sports TVs on the thing.
And then blew up. Yeah.
And I can tell you, after that, I always went to Sports Clips over Supercuts.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a whiskey bar in my salon.
Yes. Yes.
I love it.
Or have a speakeasy that your regulars get a code for the speakeasy and have their own little private locker back there.
I love it.
Right?
Like a little bed spa.
Yeah,
just a whiskey bar.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's different. Now, these are stupid, silly ideas we're just talking about, but that's how I would be thinking about my business. Like, okay, how am I going to differentiate this?
Right.
Because if you're going to do the same thing as everybody else, you're going to get the same results as everybody else.
And I love that you're saying that, because it's like you're in every industry, there's like a set of rules. So it's like, you have to follow this. You have to work these days, these hours. This is the model. And you're like, but that model's not broken. Why can't I change the rules?
That's right.
So it's all about like looking at the reality of where you're at.
Yes.
That's like, I always teach my artists this. I'm like, what are the facts of where you're at right now? You can give me every excuse in the book why it's not working. But if you actually look at the facts, you can make a less emotional decision about where you need to go with your business.
That's right.
So I feel like you had so many, like, I just want to like pick your brain. You think differently, but you guys, if you're listening to this, like he dropped so many golden nuggets, like so many things, down to saying hi to the lady at the grocery store, down to thinking bigger and outside the box. Think of sales. You're not selling, you're problem solving. You're offering a solution to people. So, again, we could continue to go now. I like want to go pick your brains more, but I want to thank you so much for being on the show today and just sharing your genius, your story. I think it's very inspiring to hear how entrepreneurs have built what they have built and how they continue to push forward. And I genuinely believe that success is great, but it's more about who you reach and who you impact.
That's right.
Like, honestly, that's the reality of it. Like, the money's fun, but really you grow as an individual, the more you impact.
Yeah.
The more you push.
You nailed it on that end part, because the joke is, if you look at the people who have all that success money, and everyone goes, why do they work so hard?
Yeah.
Because them working so hard got them all that money.
Right.
That's who they are.
Right.
And so helping people is where everyone goes once they make the resources.
Money.
Exactly. So how do we help more people make more money so they can help more people?
Right.
And the world's a better place.
Right.
And that's what it's about. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come meet your community and help anyone I can, because I've learned this from other people. I am a steward of the information. I was just paying attention, and I like to study success, and I believe it's formulaic. And so what do people who are winning in life in the areas I want to win, what do they do and how do I do it?
Right.
And I like to share to make sure others win. And it's a fraternity of sorority of entrepreneurs and go-getters and winners. And so let's promote it. It's rewarding. Yeah. And there's enough for everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Where can people find more information about you?
Obviously, the traditional social media, Instagram, at Fenster Jeff, jefffenster.com. You can learn about my stuff. I have a show, the Jeff Fenster Show, where I also get to interview, and we're going to have you on. And we interview successful people and reverse engineer their success. And Everbowl, We Build, Unevolved Products, Unevolved Concepts.
All the things.
All the things.
All right, you guys. That is a wrap for today. I feel like you should go listen to this podcast and take notes. That's how amazing it was today. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. You guys, Jeff Fenster, and I'll see you guys every single week on another episode of the Danielle K. White Show. Thanks for stopping by and share it with your friends as always.